Welcome to the sideboard here in Atlanta at the StarCGINVI.com Invitational. I'm Glenn Jones. I'm here with Brian Braun-Duin.
Hey.
Brian, you made the trek down here. You're starting off with Legacy, and you have the luxury of some buys to kick off your tournament.
Yes, we're sum equals 1, but you know.
Okay.
Still a buy. Can't complain about that.
Well, you're playing in Legacy, a deck that is a number of people have actually seen something similar, and it's getting called 4-color Deathblade, or just Deathblade, or various ways to imply that you have Deathrite Shaman and Stoneforge Mystic together in your deck.
Yeah.
So why don't you give us just a little rundown on why we should be playing this version of Stoneforge Mystic?
Basically, I think what Deathblade offers over like the normal Stoneblade decks is just the power of Deathrite Shaman in Legacy. I mean, this card is just unbelievable. The ability to do something like a turn 2 Liliana of the Veil or like a turn 3 Jace is pretty unbelievable, and the disruption it provides against other decks is also incredible. So, you know, I think it's just a mistake that Stoneblade decks are not playing this card because it really accelerates their own game plan, which can be kind of slow sometimes, and it does a great job disrupting your opponents.
I know that in Los Angeles, I remember at that last Invitational, Joe Bernal played a list that had Deathrite Shaman, Stoneforge Mystic, and Lingering Souls, very controlling.
Right.
I think Lou Laskin had another deck that was also kind of similar, running the same elements. So those decks sort of dropped off the map after the Invitational. We haven't really seen them doing well in the Open Series since. Why do you think that is?
To be honest, I don't actually know. Like I saw those decks at the Invitational. I really liked the idea behind them. I kind of wanted to play something like that for a while. I have no idea why people stopped playing them. To be honest, I don't know. It still seems good. So.
One of the primary differences in your list from most conventional Esper Stoneblade lists is you can really play the aggressive role, I think, a lot better. Deathrite Shaman obviously can clock the opponent's life total really easily in Legacy, and you've also gone ahead and added Dark Confidants, which are excellent against both control decks and as a 2-1 beater in and of its own right. So how have they been playing?
So the last time I played this deck, I had just 2 copies of Confidant, and every time I cast it, it was just exceptional for me. So I figured this time I'd just play the full set, and I really like Bob a lot in this deck. I actually think it might be the best 2-drop out of these 3. So it's saying a lot.
Yeah, that is no small praise, Bob, over Stoneforge Mystic on turn 2.
Yep.
So obviously, there's got to be a reason we're not just all playing Deathrite Shaman in our decks, right? I assume that trade-off comes from the mana.
It does. Yep.
You've still got the basics that Stoneforge is known for being able to play, which is obviously a heavy incentive to play it in general against decks that have Wasteland. But you've also got a lot of non-basics. You have to reach for your green and Tropical Island. How concerned are you with Wasteland breaking up your day?
I'm not too concerned by it. Like, it definitely can be a problem, but I actually think Deathrite makes the reason I'm playing like Wasteland over like some other utility land is because of Deathrite, and I think if you can stick like a turn 1 Deathrite, your opponent's Wastelands no longer become that as relevant because of his ability to generate.
Right, they have to kind of decide between whether they're going to play a removal spell or a Wasteland on turn 1, and either way, you've gained some tempo.
Yeah, you gain an advantage off of that. So.
Okay, that's very reasonable. You mentioned you've got Wasteland as a utility land here. Caracas, no-brainer, especially with Sneak and Show around these days.
Exactly.
But your last one is a little bit spicy. We see him from time to time, near and dear to my heart, Creeping Tar Pit.
You know, I think, Glenn, the reason you actually hit on this earlier is because Deathrite's like such an aggressive card, it makes like Creeping Tar Pit so much better, and vice versa. Like Deathrite can incidentally do like 4 to 6 damage, and you like all of a sudden you're like, hey, my opponent's just at 8 life, and I didn't I got this Creeping Tar Pit, let me just kill him. So.
All right, well, I'm glad that I'm such a seer, I guess. Yeah. Moving over to the sideboard, we see a lot of cards that are relatively conventional Legacy cards in the format. Some not so much. Like you want to Vindicate, want to Path to Exile. These are interesting. But what you have done is sideboard Force of Wills, which was another thing that occurred at the Los Angeles Invitational. I feel like at Invitationals, players are a little more willing to move those Force of Wills to the sideboard. They expect a lot more fair decks than unfair decks. Is that your thinking as well?
Definitely. Like I expect Stoneblade, like Bug Control, like Jonda. I expect those to be like the most popular decks here. I think a lot of the Invitational players really enjoy playing their fair decks. So Force of Will is just not that good in the fair matchups. I'd rather have it in the sideboard to bring it in when I need it.
Makes sense. You've also got a smattering of disruption to go along with those, and Vendilion Clicks and additional Thoughtseize. I imagine you're bringing Snapcaster Mage in a lot of matchups where you're bringing in these spells to double up on your counts, right?
For sure, yeah.
Okay. And last but not least, you can actually shift into the control deck with a couple of Supreme Verdicts. What are we generally bringing out when we bring those in?
A lot of times, the cards you want to bring out when you bring in Supreme Verdicts, like most of the time, is actually just Jace the Mind Sculptor. A lot of matchups like Rug Delver, for example, Jace is like a little too slow, and you can't actually interact with cards like Nimble Mongoose anyway. and you want to cut, and like it's very easy for their dazes and force of wills to get a Jade. So like swapping that for a Supreme Verdict is like pretty sweet. And like usually like the matchups where you want Supreme Verdict are like some of the aggressive creature decks. You don't want as many like fours clogging up your hand. So oftentimes that gets cut, or sometimes like the counter spell gets cut if it's like a creature. Like against a deck like Merfolk, you don't want a 2-mana counter spell. You'd rather have a Supreme Verdict. So
that makes plenty of sense. All right, well, Brian, thanks for joining us. And
thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks.